All right, we're live. Welcome to this live hangout. We will start with some Ask Me Anything stuff, but I need to get Sahil in somehow. And I said I have 0 viewers right now, so let's give it a while. If you're watching this later, when it's not live, just forward a bit until we get started, because I think it will be a bit boring until I get this. I mean, it's the first time I'm trying to invite other people, so I have no clue how this will work out. Let's see. One viewer. Oh, here I can do that here. Sahil. I have no idea if this is the correct Sahil. I'll try. Sahil, if you're watching, can you kind of confirm that you're watching and if you got an invite or not? And I was kind of hoping that I could invite. Oh, it's better if I get your email somehow. You can post it in the Facebook group if you don't want to, or PM, Facebook PM, I guess, or Hangouts PM. Otherwise, Sahil, meanwhile, I'll just go on with some other Ask Me Anything stuff. But I'd rather do your stuff first. Oh, anyhow. So, I got one question from, let's see here. I forgot to write up the name. Joel Castano on freecodecamp/help JavaScript. So I'm trying to help out some people there. I'll just say Joe. So, yep, had a question about how to get a job, and he provides some information. And okay, let's see here. Sahil wrote something. Okay, so let's see if we can invite Sahil. And then I'll take this question after that. Sahil. Let's see here. Invite. Okay, Sahil, you're invited. And it should, I have one viewer, so that should be you. But still, you should be able to join the actual class. Maybe if I share this link instead. Oh!
Hello. Yeah.
Tjena! Välkommen!
I thought that you might just we might just ask text question. That's why I was writing on the questions field.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, I kind of guessed that
Okay.
that was the misunderstanding. But I mean, and it's great that you joined anyhow. And
Yes.
it's okay if you do it in English.
Yeah, no problem. Jag kan köra på svenska, men jag fortfarande lär mig. Så.
Oh, but that's great because I'm trying to kind of keep it open so more people
Yeah.
can participate.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sahil, welcome to the show. But I mean, the show kind of implies that someone is watching, and right now it's
Yes.
just
Yes.
anyhow.
Of
But
course.
I mean, the reason why I want you to actually join like this is because I want to encourage other beginners to take part like of the same world as we who have programmed for a while. Because otherwise,
Yes.
just like you post a question, you hear me talking for 2 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, and I might not even like answer your question. It's really hard to just get the text questions. So
Yeah.
could you just like introduce a bit of yourself, like who you are, what's your background, and like what's your current programming status? Like, how beginner are you?
Okay. As far as programming, I have some. I have learned myself some C programming for beginning, and learning some JavaScript. So yeah, I'm pretty beginner level as far as programming.
How is it through the free code camp sites, or how have you learned? I mean, especially.
Free code camp. I don't remember. I actually I think last year I found that free code camp, but I wasn't that engaged there. But this I found that it has a Facebook page based on Sweden, and so I just joined the Facebook page so that I mean it's better to learn by like engaging and doing stuff maybe, and I'm lacking of that maybe because I'm studying JavaScript and all the stuff. Yeah, I'm learning the object-oriented concepts and stuff. Yeah, it's
Oh,
cool.
cool.
So let's get to the next level by doing maybe. Yeah, I can little bit. I understand how HTML CSS works and JavaScript goes with them. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So what's the next level for you then? What would you like to be able to do, like in a
like
couple of years, maybe?
yeah, like front end, and I'm more interested now in JavaScript because I saw that JavaScript used to be only front end. Now it's went to back end with Node.js and all the stuff I
Yeah.
found. And JavaScript, I found that JavaScript has some framework like AngularJS and React or some. Yeah. So I think it's a good idea if I can with JavaScript, so I can move then maybe as a full stack, as you can say, but start with the front end. I think it's a good idea. So,
I'm just writing down, so I'll provide some links to Angular and, of course, React, since I'll discuss that
yeah,
after this, and also Node for the backend
yeah,
to discuss. And it's the same thing for me. I like that I did a lot of object-oriented stuff, and I loved it. And
okay,
I hated JavaScript because it was so ugly as a language, and you had like all the jQuery stuff in one big file, and you
yeah,
have the HTML. Like if you change something in the HTML structure, most often, like back in the days, everything broke, and you had this like thousands of lines of code in JavaScript, and you need to find like where should I change something for it to work, and then everything worked again.
yeah,
And I think that's like if you've been in the business, like at like the 90s, the beginning of the millennium, most of us hated JavaScript. And now when I
okay,
saw like you could do everything, and you can even do functional programming, I feel like I had a shot through Angular to actually learn how to do good JavaScript, and I wouldn't have to hate it as much. And I just grew up with it. But okay, cool. I think that you're on the same path as me then, with the, like kind of just learning language, being able to use it everywhere. And another good term to learn then is universal JavaScript. And I don't remember the previous term. We used to call it something else, but universal JavaScript is kind of like you should be able to use your JavaScript everywhere. So if you have business logic for something, you can put it on the back end, on front end, or even on a robot or something. So and that's something that I aim for myself, that most of our code should be able to be used anywhere. But okay,
yeah.
Sil, what's your questions then?
Yeah, my questions about the about how the whole thing works. For example, I if I write some code, or if I design some front end stuff, and then I have some business logic in my mind, but I want to do the design. Have to do the design first, and then the backend, or should we like begin from the backend and go to the design? I mean, fix all the logic, the whole system works, then I design the front end. Should I work like that, or should I work like beginning from the front end and then go to the logics?
Okay, so well, I would say the main kind of we must follow some kind of model, some kind of structural way, so you can get better at whatever you do. So there's different paths here. If you want to do it all yourself, which is kind of what I'm trying to promote here, is
Yes,
like you do the entire stack from front end to database. That's kind
yes,
of then you have the design on the far end here. You have the implementation of the design, the HTML, CSS, animations, business logic, And it can also go a bit into the animations and CSS and HTML nowadays. But the business logic on the front end with validation and also databases on the front end for caching all that stuff. Then you have the communication with the server. And the server validates data as well, authenticates, like login, and gives rights to the user to do different stuff. And then you have kind of administrator, which might do more than an ordinary user and all that stuff. Then you have the kind of business logic for everything you ask for. Like you should transfer the request. So let's take something like we're actually doing a login, but we're doing it for a user that's not yet created. So they don't have an account on our site. So we should deny that somehow.
Yeah.
And I mean, how do you do something like that? Like the login stuff, for example, is something that when you do the login for your product, and where do you start? So first of all, if you want to get hired somewhere today, especially in Stockholm, I don't know for the rest of the world, you should know JavaScript as the language very well. That's the most important part before you think of anything else. Because even though you're great at actually making products live, you might have bugs that you don't discover because you don't have hundreds of thousands visitors or concurrent users. Like, you really need to understand how your code avoids memory leaks and like different performance issues when you scale it up. And that's something really important for beginners, just to have in mind. You don't need to learn how to optimize your code. You just need to learn how to not make it buggy. And then you have the best course, I would say, is you don't know JavaScript, and I will put links up later. You don't know JavaScript by Kyle Simpson, and he basically goes through the nitty-gritty details of how JavaScript as a language works.
Okay. Yeah, I have maybe downloaded the book. There was a free book of the first version of this series or something, right?
If you can, I would recommend Frontend Masters, but it costs a bit. It's not that cheap. So if you get it for free, go with the books. I tend to go with online material because it kind of goes faster and it's more stimulating and then engaging than books.
Yeah.
So Frontend Masters have a course for that. You also have another one with JavaScript, the good parts.
Where are you putting the links? I mean, where are you writing?
Right now, but I can actually, I could do it live as well. Say something. I can put it in the stream here. I'm putting it on a note.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you share later, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's better. Otherwise, it will just be like all the Chrome on the sides. It's better to provide a summary later.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so JavaScript, the good parts, is by Doug Crockford. It's also good, but I would just recommend JavaScript. I mean, you don't know JavaScript, and just go over that until you really know it. Because if you don't understand the stuff that he says in you don't know JavaScript, it's more of how a compiler works. Then you really need to learn that. Because the stuff that Doug Crockford in JavaScript, the good parts, talks about is a bit dated. It's more about the different design patterns and using kind of vanilla JavaScript. But as soon as you go into ECMAScript 2015 or ECMAScript 6, the new standard of JavaScript, it kind of changes stuff. Yeah. So it's good to watch JavaScript, the good parts, but I would definitely go with the other one first.
Okay.
But that's okay. So that's first. You learn the basics of the language, and you become an expert on it, or not expert, but comfortable with JavaScript as a language.
So you mean here like many people learn the language with using any framework like side by side. So I should like put aside the framework and only focus on the language first, right?
I would suggest for a beginner, it might be good to use a framework to kind of see some kind of basic structure.
Yeah.
But the framework will always be wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
the more you learn along a framework, if you look at Angular 1, it was amazing. I loved it. But I had to go through so much material looking at the different ideas that the author, really good guy, like what decisions he made. Why is, for example, have you done Angular?
I have done a little bit.
Then you have, they talk about MV star.
Yeah, MV, whatever they say.
Yeah, MV whatever. And that's totally bullshit because it's MVVM. But the thing is, they call it MVC because everybody knows MVC. And MVC, I would call it Web MVC. And Web MVC comes from Ruby on Rails. And Ruby on Rails got like super popular in Silicon Valley and enabled.
It's a backend, right?
It's full stack.
Okay.
It's mostly backend.
It's for replacing like PHP or something.
Ruby is a language, so it was replacing PHP, you could say.
Okay.
And Angular is basically following, like, I think the author had the idea of MVC, but the difference between MVC and MVVM, those are the two major patterns right now. You have also some difference, but if you look at MVVM and the MVC, the only difference is like with MVC, you have a model which contains like the state. You could say the state and the interaction with the state. So if we have a clock, you might have the actual time, the state of the clock, time, and then you might have, depending on how you do the clock, you might have a function for like increasing the clock with 1 second or something, or you might have it internally. But this is a really stupid, simple clock. So let's say we just start at 0 seconds and we just, a counter. We could say that instead, so it's even simpler. So you have the state of the counter. We have some function to get the number of, like the value of the counter. And we also have some kind of function to increase the ticker, the counter, with 1. That way, we can't set the state directly, but we must go through a function to set some valid new state.
Yeah.
And that way, we can't set something like a string or a decimal or something. We can only go through a safe way, setting state and getting state. Okay, so now we have a view over here that should show that state. But for these two to be like separate, so we can do different kind of views, maybe a mobile view and a detailed view or a list view, different kind of views. We want to kind of have one view, one model, and pair them together. That's why we have a controller up here that creates a new model and hands it over to a view. Then you get a triangle here.
So the logic stands there, or
the controller should only kind of pair them together. It should do nothing more. That's the thing where most people do wrong, that they put logic in the controller, but the basic, and of course this is my view, but I mean the basic thing that the controller does is just like it's like a signal system, like red light, yellow light, green light. Now this car should drive right, this car should drive left. So the controller only kind of directs where should your, like when you press a button to increase the counter, where should the signal go? Oh, it should go to this model. And the controller should only like be the director of how components talk to each other. Then the controller is done.
Okay, but where the logic sits then?
The logic is only in the Okay, I'm starting. I will start with a lie. It will be in this triangle. Yeah. It will be in the model, but that doesn't mean that the model is a big like chunk of information and behavior. But that's also wrong. Like you will have a tiny model just having the state and the behavior of actual counter. Then you will have different kind of you will have maybe some kind of business logic could be translating it to, let's say, words. Like the counter is, the numbers become 1, 2, the words 1, 2, 3 or something, or colors, or you might have validation for or access rights layers. Then that is in the model if you look at the diagram. But when you zoom in, it's kind of a whole structure of different services, as you call it in Angular. You have different kind of services working together. And then we need different patterns in here to isolate different code. And the model is just like the core of that. Then you have stuff on the outside. And all that together in a package goes into the controller, which goes into the view. And we also have like models inside of models. But the most important thing with the model is that it should not directly communicate with the database. That's the #1 mistake.
So controller, it contacts via controller or something.
The controller should just, in this MVC pattern, I want to move on to the MVVM. So the most important thing here is that what you see in the triangle when you look at Wikipedia or something, the controller only pairs the view and the model together. We haven't defined exactly what is a view and what is a model. And when you move to React, those kind of go together. So you're kind of screwed there anyway. But what I want to say is you don't need to think about a view and a model at all. If you just think about the controller, and then you have a module A here, like some code here, that wants to communicate with a different kind of code here, then you can have a controller.
Okay, so these two models can be like flexible of what they do.
Yeah. The interesting part is what's happening here in between. Like once they are coupled together, usually you have, let's screen share here. That screen. Okay. And I hope I have good font size now. Let's see, Webpack theme. Boilerplate. Just take something. I just need a JS file here. So I'll bump up the size a bit.
Is it like Plunker?
Yeah, it's like Plunker. Okay, so basically here, we're just doing some React stuff, but I don't need any of this. But I don't dare to comment. I'm not that good at Plunkers and stuff. So we just have like some, and this is, let's do normal old style JavaScript. We have a model A. Let's say we have a, let's take the counter model and just say that it's something here with like pick, and then we have a function tick, and that will do stuff later, but just to like show the pattern here. We have another model which takes the counter model and something else we might have with the counter. Okay, so the counter model it's only supposed to, in this case, we say that the counter model only increases when you call tick, it increases by 1. So it starts on 0, and then it decreases by 1.
Yeah.
And then we have some counter increaser model. We don't need to call it model, just counter increaser. And that one do tick. And in here, it should get some kind of counter C model. Okay, there's a lot of stuff here. Okay, I won't make the code run because it will take too much time, but
yeah,
if we look at this code here, we have the counter model up here with a tick function, and it should have a state as well. We don't have any state right now, but the only important thing is we kind of provide an interface. We say that some kind of counter model has a function tick, and when we call it, we expect something to happen on the model. We have a counter increaser, which we might have like, we can do it like this, set interval. And set interval takes a function. I'll do ECMAScript function. It's just a shorthand.
Is it the 6th one?
Yeah, this is a ECMAScript 6.
Okay, I haven't looked at the, yeah.
Okay, so let's do it the normal style.
Old way. No problem, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but it's just a normal function here.
Okay.
And 1000. This will mean that we create an interval, so every 1000 milliseconds, meaning every second. Which is second bar second equals 1000. And you can also notice that I don't use semicolons.
Okay. It works with every version of JavaScript without semicolon.
What did you say?
Without semicolon works with every version of script.
You need to learn how it works without semicolons.
Okay.
I'll provide a link on that as well. It's called automatic semicolon insertion, ASI.
Okay.
And I'll provide a blog post of how it works.
Okay.
There's a hot debate of whether you use it or not. As long as you're unsure, use the semicolons.
Yeah, that's why I like to use the semicolon all the time.
Yeah, but you still need to learn when JavaScript inserts semicolons anyhow, especially when you use React, because sometimes you will get semicolons inserted by JavaScript, the language itself, where you didn't put any because it thinks that, yeah, it should be a semicolon here, and then you screwed anyhow. So it doesn't matter if you use semicolons or not. If you don't understand how JavaScript as a language works, you're screwed anyhow. And that's what we need to believe. This is a perfect thing. Like, it doesn't matter how you write your code if you're looking for a job. But if you don't understand, you will just have bugs in your code and you won't notice anything because it's not an issue for memory leak.
Yes. Yes. If I don't understand the whole process, then I have to memorize some things, and I don't want to do that. Like, because you have to then memorize many stuff.
Yeah, that's correct. So start with semicolons.
Yeah.
And but here, and actually I can provide it. We don't need it here. There we should have semicolon. There. There. And we're not done here. So do tick. Okay. So Actually, I think we can make this work. Bin log. Log. And let's see now. So we have the tick here. We have the do tick, which takes a model, and we need to then, inside our controller here, make this work. So it's one file now, but this is like model, tick model here. This is our ticker. I don't know what you call this one, but we could say like tick business logic. And huh?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay, so here we'll just pair them together. So our controller just takes oh, okay, so let's see here. I think this won't work because I need to do some more stuff in instantiate and all that stuff. Yeah, so the controller here should just make do tick call the C model here, and then I have to pair stuff together. But basically the idea, and I just want to show that it's that in here you have do tick, which takes the model, and let's see here, do tick and counter model. That should work, right? Yeah, now it works. Okay. So this is our controller.
So,
and the most important, you don't need to understand the code that much. You just need to see this pattern here. You have the model, and you send the model in somewhere, and you make like the do tick work by giving in the model. So you kind of inject the model inside another code, and it works together. And this is the important thing. The controller is one line, like that's it. You don't. So the only thing it does is bind them together. Enough said. So you don't put logic in. And
and so the controller, what the controller is doing here, like using the other code, but just doing a binding with some other part.
Yeah, so that's it. And in Angular, I saw that they had the boilerplates for Angular. I don't know Angular 2, but let's see how to do this here.
They had a last line of like controller. I mean, there was they created app, and then in the last line, I don't know which version of the Angular was the last line. They used the app. Is that the controller line, or it was maybe the old version? It was, because I'm seeing some changes here. I mean, the version I worked with.
I'm quite unsure really how it's changed. And looking at this, they use the class pattern here. Okay, so they use ECMAScript 6 here. So this is not a good example. And also you see here, they call it controller, and they do stuff in the controller. So I can't modify this to actually show how it works with Angular. But basically, you have a template, like some kind of template here. This is the view. And I would say that in your controller to that view, you have some kind of controller, some function, and then you in Angular you inject some kind of, and so we would have the like tick service.
It was like that.
And then you have the scope, and I'm a bit unsure here. I guess we should have like $scope, or I don't remember that.
Yeah, some service, that service you want to use, like HTTP and stuff. If you want to use HTTP service, so you just add the HTTP in the parameters.
Yeah, but somehow we need if $scope. I think $scope is how we like provide stuff to the view.
Yeah, yeah.
So then basically we can just do like tick equals tick service, and that's it. I mean, this is the corresponding way of doing it the Angular way. If you try to stay true to the model view controller process.
Yeah.
As soon as you go with like $scope dot tick equals function, then you do stuff in here. This is no. They're like, no, don't do that. That's stuff inside the control that shouldn't be there. And there's a really important thing that once you become more senior, you will notice that when you do tests, like automated tests, and probably you haven't begun with that, but if you want your code to be testable, you want it to be testable outside of Angular. And also, if you want to change from Angular to React, how hard is it to do that? Because React doesn't have a controller. So if you have a good separation of code, if you do it with the like $scope tick here, like this code, you're screwed. You have to rewrite your code.
Yeah.
But if inside your tick service, just have like you have a file that just contains your business logic, and inside your tick service, you just like kind of import that file.
Okay.
Then you can do the same thing in React. You can just import the business logic into React and do it the React way. And that's how you should do it. You should isolate your business logic and all logic from Angular and just use normal JavaScript, and then use the framework like Ember, Angular, React, or jQuery, and don't let the framework own your code. Because then you will only learn how to do the code inside of that framework.
Okay, so this kind of good practice, so that the migration goes smooth. What should they do from the beginning? I mean, is there like is this language specific practice for writing this kind of clean code so that it's easier to migrate or something? What to put in the mind when I'm designing or writing a module or something?
It's hard. I mean, that's why I left Angular. I would, and that's if you really want to learn that you need to learn first, as I said, the language JavaScript and kind of the quirks. But then after that, you need to kind of learn how to isolate your code, and that is something that.
Is this language specific or programming paradigm specific?
No. It's basically across the paradigms as well. I mean, I have left the object-oriented paradigm and tried to go to functional, but I still program mostly the same way. So if I need to go inside object-oriented programming, I will still kind of isolate the code in the same way.
Okay.
And I can't give you the easy answer to like what path you should really take, except test-driven development, TDD. I'll write that down as well.
Yeah, TDD I heard of and read some articles about.
If you learn how to do test-driven development, you will learn how to isolate your code. But basically, if you just follow some basic guidelines, you might end up in the right direction anyhow. So skipping TDD, if we start with a function, in here we have arguments.
Yeah.
Max 3 arguments. You should never have more than 3 arguments. Let's say 4, but like 3 or 4. Like it should mostly just be a couple of arguments. When you get like more than 4, like 4, 5, 6 arguments, that will mess up your code, and you will need a lot more code inside
that function.
Yeah,
okay.
So the function will grow into be too big. And also if you need more, so that's a sign that you haven't separated your code. And that's, I think 3 is a good number, because I will use the number 6 inside here. So you have a statement here, and a statement is basically have everything that's semicolon separated is kind of a statement. So var x equals arg2, and we might plus 1. Okay, so that's a statement. If we have more than 3, 4, 5, 6. So if your function is bigger than this, then you're not separating it enough.
Okay.
And it's also an arbitrary number, 6 lines. But note that it's not 6 lines. We could also do like this. It would still be 6 statements. You don't write JavaScript like this, but sometimes you will have like .map, .filter, and it's like more lines than 6, but it's still okay.
So that means while designing the logic, I mean, you have to divide your problem into much smaller parts, so smaller parts can so that the function, a single function, do the simplest task maybe, and we have like more function, but simple function, right? I mean.
So let's see. So this is inside one function.
Yeah.
And if we must split them, we will have more functions, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So
because we are dividing the functionality into another function.
Then your file becomes like this. And now I have 6 functions, and I will say no more than 6 functions. You see here, I have to scroll a bit, but if I zoom out, it's on one screen. Okay, it's a high resolution screen, but still, you don't have to have everything on a screen. But just like now I'm thinking about the number 6. And the reason I'm just picking something between about 5 and 7, because I think about cognitive load. Like how much can you keep in mind in your short-term memory at the same time? And it's a maximum between 5 and 7, so we should really be below that, and then we should go with the number 4, really. So this is like the maximum amount of code in one file, but this would be better.
Okay.
Like 4 in one file. But anyhow, it's just like guiding lines. It's not something that you need to follow every time, but in the whole, this should be followed. And what happens then is you need to think like how this will be a problem for you as a beginner, because it's easier to just write everything in the code from up and down, like inside one function. That's much simpler. So when you do this, in the beginning, it will be really hard. And then you need to find solutions. And those solutions will be much, much better. It will be solutions that senior programmers use to solve complex problems. While if you do it inside one function with lots of codes and lots of arguments, and you try to find solutions to that problem, you will just find like beginner programmers, not that good programmers, giving you easy solutions that might solve a bit of the problem, but it will just like cover the real issue up.
Yeah, in the beginning of C programming, we did like this. Yeah, we just wrote line by line, and then after we learned how to like divide into function, it became so easy.
And the interesting part here with the number 6 is that you can keep scaling it upwards. So the maximum number of files I would suggest per folder is 6. And you have to break it sometimes due to... I won't go into why you have to break it, because you will find that out yourself. You should try to never break it anyhow. But inside a folder, no more than 6 files. And that's something that if you follow like some Angular guides, you will see that you have a folder with model files, and another folder with view files, and another folder with controller files. And then you have like 50 files in each folder. And that's not good, because then you have, it will become harder to kind of isolate your code. But if you start with, in Angular, you have a components folder, and inside that you have the counter folder. And inside the counter folder, you have the model, the view, the controller. You're up to 3 files. Okay. If the model is complex, you need to have lots of functions inside the model file, so it goes beyond this. Well, you have to divide it into different services.
Yeah.
And then you need to create a subfolder called service or model services or something. And then you can keep on going and going. So now you have some kind of pattern of how your code should always look. And it doesn't matter if you do it imperative, object-oriented, functional, or whatever. And the style is, I mean, you're going from the Ruby on Rails model view controller folder directory setup to component-based structure. And I just know one Angular document here. I will try and find it, but I will also code in this way all the time myself. So it's easier if I just show you through the video costs.
Okay.
But okay, so now we have the structure, and we covered, like, you know the language, you know the structure. Now, I mean, now you're pretty good. Now you're hireable. But you can show just these 2 things in your on GitHub, like a repository, where you have an entire app, and you deployed it, and you have this kind of structure. I can hire you if I know that it's your code and not someone else's. That's also important, because many junior guys, they start with like a boilerplate, add their own code, and like 20% of the code is your code, 80% is just the boilerplate. I can't hire you then. But you're going back to your main questions, like, do I need to go full stack or front end or whatever? I would say today, focus on the front end. That's where we need good JavaScript people. And also, I mean, JavaScript on the front end compared to the back end is almost the same. If you just learn the patterns, like the language, really well, and you learn how to write good code in a structured way, you need to do it the same way on the front end as back end. So you don't have a benefit learning in the beginning that the full stack. You should just stay on the front end. But if you want to do your own ideas and you want to, like, develop a small company or something like that, you need to go full stack anyhow.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I have some big plans, but not enough knowledge to execute that. Maybe.
Yeah, but then I would say the mindset should be that you should always be prepared to acquire knowledge, no matter what what domain the knowledge is. So if it's design, like, no, I'm a developer, I don't need to learn design. Yeah, you should learn design. Marketing, of course you should learn marketing. If you met some great marketing guy and he starts giving you tips, I mean, of course you should learn it.
Yeah.
So we need to learn, like, everything about. I would want to hire a guy that sees himself or herself
Yeah.
As a developer, software developer or web developer, but doesn't contain, just because you're most comfortable with the front end stuff, it doesn't mean that you're isolated or like limited to front end stuff.
No. Yeah.
And that's the beauty of JavaScript. If you learn front end stuff really well, I can hire you as a backend in Node and just train you, because I know that you have a sound knowledge of the basics.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, so if you want to go on the full stack journey, though, what will be hardest when you go to the full stack is that you also need to learn what's called DevOps, and that stands for like development or developer operations, something like that. And it's about the infrastructure, like how do I deploy my code? How do I make my server in a safe manner, like a secure server that can scale and serve millions of people out on the cloud or on a server somewhere that you own. And that's another entire, like, I will cover that myself throughout this series, but that is really, really hard. So that if you want to cheat somewhere and not learn something, then it's how you deploy stuff. Then you should just find a quick guide and don't care about it too much right now, because it takes a lot of time. Like everything that's about configuring and installing stuff, that will be hard, because then you need to install and configure everything correctly, like and sit down for like half an hour without like blindfolded, not knowing what you're doing, and half an hour later you get like a green light or a red light. And when we code, we can go down and like just write a function with 2 arguments and four statements, and then we call the function from a test and we get a green light. So you go down to like, if you can do small iterations, everything goes down to make the problem smaller. And that's something that we can't do on the DevOps side yet. So hopefully that's something. I mean, we didn't cover so much of like MVVM and the difference between MVC, but as I'm kind of implying here, it's not the most important thing. We can call it MV whatever. Like you don't need to learn it as long as you just keep your code structured. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. So the system is for like whenever other people comes and take over your code, so that they find the right thing in the right place.
Yeah, I mean
the MVC. So the other people can easily understand where the logics are, where the things are, like that.
Okay, it's
because it's I understand that it's maybe easier to write also as well, like that, like MVC, do the components separate, but also when someone else take over some project or some code, so they can also understand that this is that, so maybe it's easier to.
I'm so glad that you asked the question, because that's a question that most people don't ask, and that has been a big divider in our community. Ruby on Rails, for example, that got really popular because you had a standardized format, so it's easier to kind of write the code. And most people thought that since it's easier to write the code, it's easier to also read the code. But it wasn't true. I mean, Ruby on Rails code and compared to a totally unstructured project, then it's easier with the Ruby on Rails code because it has some structure. But then usually you have the controller with like hundreds of lines of code, and you go inside the model which has like 1,000 lines of code. because you didn't have the right patterns, the right solutions. And you can't understand 1,000 lines of code. So if you send me in and try to fix something, I will try to find the right function, and I will see the code that I need to fix. But I will never be able to understand that, is this fix that I'm making, how will it affect the entire system? Because it's side by side with 1,000 lines of code and other files outside of that might communicate with my small function. And that's the problem. Like, how can I isolate code so I know that my fix will only affect people, or I mean, affect the colors of the function, and who are the colors and how do you communicate?
Okay.
So keeping it separate, like in the component-based way, then you kind of need to think about, like, how does components communicate to each other? And that kind of goes back to the MVC pattern, that you just had a controller taking one component and another component and just pairing them together.
Yeah.
If you start thinking about it like that, you can use the MVC thinking and just like compose components together without them really having to know that, like, is it the same component every time? You can kind of change the inside of the different components, and it won't really leak to the outside if you do it in a good way. And then it doesn't really matter, like, do you use Angular or do you use class-based or whatever. For me, that I'm not good at JavaScript object-oriented class-based. I don't do that kind of code. But if you structure it the right way, I just need to read like a screen full of code, and then I can reason about, like, okay, so this is the code, this is the inside of the class. I don't know how this class-based code works, but just need to understand a screen full of code. Then I'm done.
Okay.
And that's the most important thing. And I don't think that you will get excellent. I think that you can get kind of good, but without writing tests, you won't get there entirely, I believe. But I also want to point out that if you do tests on the front end, just focus on unit tests, not integration tests. A unit test, like, only test the small functions. You don't need to test the whole component or test the browser that it does the right thing. That's more complicated. As a beginner, you only need to test the smallest units, the single function inside a file. If you can test that, then you will get forward in a good manner. And you don't even need to follow TDD. You just need to understand kind of like why you write tests. And on the front end, it's different from the back end. Here we have some kind of different. It's harder on the front end.
Okay.
Angular is kind of, for me, it doesn't matter, but I think the community in Angular, I mean, Misko, the creator of Angular, had testing in mind. So I think you can find good information of how you should write unit tests for Angular.
Okay.
But I'll cover that as well in the future.
So in how the Angular and React is different to each other? I mean, do they do things for the same purpose, or do they serve some different purpose as well?
Angular is more of a traditional framework, so it's it provides the like the coupling of view, controller, and model, like how you should do it, and it kind of makes your entire application just work. So
I wrote a view and some logic that take some data from, for example, GitHub API and show in this kind of stuff. I wrote something like that stuff, but can I do with React but not Angular? Is there anything?
What if you just have React? like the first thing you will notice is that doing React, let's see here, the boilerplate should be pretty good, I hope. Let's see how to do this. You see here, they have ID app. And then it's so it's, oh, sorry, I need to
Yeah.
share my screen. Here, share. Okay,
Cool.
so
Thanks.
we're inside index.html. So it's the start side.
Yeah.
And we have the ID app, which is the entry point.
Yeah.
In Angular, that would be ng app.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a difference. And the difference here is that Angular says that I know how to parse the HTML structure to find the ng app here. So this is Angular specific, but this here is normal HTML. Like it's not React code. It's just ID equals app.
Yeah.
No, so this is Angular specific, and this is just HTML ordinary.
Yeah.
And that's a important difference when we look now in main. You see here we have some kind of render that's you use the React a React library called React DOM, and you call React DOM render, and it takes in some kind of special React stuff. But here's the interesting thing: to render, you need to provide some kind of JavaScript DOM element, and it finds it in this manner. And like if I go to, let's just copy this, and I'll go to Angular, an Angular web page. So they should hopefully not use React. And I'll just do like it, and I get something back. Oh, now I need to increase. So I just did document selector, and it takes in, it's like CSS. So here I say, give me the first div element you find, and I can also go like a class if I have a class with some colleagues that's 12 if you use Bootstrap or something. Or so anyhow, it's just normal JavaScript.
Yeah.
And that's what's important here, that using React, you don't have a framework anymore. So you really need to use the normal JavaScript code, or find another library that does this better, like jQuery, for example. So we could do like, I don't know jQuery that well, but something like this.
Yeah, I know some if handler. Yeah, it's a library that people use for adding if handler and stuff.
Yeah, so you can use other tools and libraries with React.
Okay.
And, but with Angular, they try to think about everything you need, from like how you write your router, how you make your server calls, like the server requests.
Yeah.
How you make some kind of structure in an Angular way. React doesn't do that.
Okay.
React only helps with the rendering part, and then for everything else, you need another library or write your own custom code. And for a beginner, that can be really discouraging. Like, how do you know what router to use with React? There's a React router, there's some kind of React simple router, Redux router. Redux, for example, is really popular right now for handling the state of your application.
Okay.
But is that the best? You also have different Flux patterns. You have all these different tools that do the same thing inside of React to fill up the void.
So React is more open. I mean.
Yes, and that openness will be so confusing for a beginner because you don't know the benefits of different framework, different tools. But I would say that I will lie a bit now, but I will call React a tool and Angular a framework. And a framework consists of different tools. So you have your, it's like if you're a...
It's like you have a package in Angular does everything, and in React you don't have that.
Exactly. But to be fair, Angular won't solve everything perfect, and it will be extensible with other tools. So you will have the same issue with Angular. It's just that you will get up quickly with Angular. You will get an app faster with Angular. But the cost of getting the app done faster is that you can do it in a bad way without learning how you do it in a better way. So think of like, I like mixed martial arts, for example. And then it's like, you can learn it in different ways. Like you can go and learn boxing for 2 years and then some wrestling stuff for 2 years. Or another guy might just like, okay, how do I punch hard? Okay, I learned that. Now, how do I pick somebody up and throw him on the floor, and then learn that? So now he can punch someone and he can throw him on the floor, but it doesn't really know boxing. Or so like different ways, and it doesn't really matter. The most important thing is that you always try to get better and understand like what problems are you solving and how. And if the problems you're solving is a problem that is due to the framework. So if you have problems with Angular and it's Angular specific, you wouldn't solve this problem if you didn't use Angular. You should try to avoid that problem altogether by either not using Angular or finding some pattern from the outside. And same thing with React. If you look here, and the lie I told you before is that React is only a tool and not a framework. I would say that it's a really small framework for rendering views. So it's kind of, in some sense, it's a tool. In some sense, it's a framework. And this here, hello world, comes from some code here, and this is called JSX. You write HTML inside your JavaScript code.
Is that like you are creating your own tag? I mean, own personal tag, so that you can render it in the HTML?
So if I change this to goodbye world, this needs to be changed also to goodbye world.
Yeah.
So it's only, and the thing that's happening is that the code, you need to convert this code to normal JavaScript. But it will be converted before you put it on a server. You will not have JSX code on the server. It needs to be converted to JavaScript.
So it's under the hood, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so JSX, for example, I don't think that we should use it. I think we should use normal JavaScript. And I'm solving problems to convert JSX down to JavaScript. And that's a problem I don't want to have.
Okay.
So do I need to leave React to get rid of that? No, I can just write normal React JavaScript. So okay, I can continue using React. Now React also have another problem, and that's how you can write code. And let's see how they did it here. Okay, so they did it in a good way. This is good React code, but you can also write something like class hello world, and then it's like extends React. I don't know. This is just like total.
Okay, it's object-oriented concept.
Yeah. And if you do it like this, I will get mad because it's so much more code, and you do so much more. You can do much more bad code if you write it this way, because you can have too much state. You can have the model having too much state and behavior. So you have those really long code snippets that we wanted to avoid. So the new way came with like some months ago. React added this way of writing, and it got really popular. And it's more on the functional side of programming. Okay. And okay, so now I have an issue. Like if you wrote Angular code in the class way, and I wrote in the functional way, and I don't agree with your way of writing, and you don't understand why, because every guide you looked at wrote in the class notation. So you followed all the guides, and those guys are probably better at React than me, so why should you trust me? If I was a team leader, I could just say, let's not use React. Let's just use some other tool which only lets you write code this way. And I would just avoid the discussion altogether, because we can only write code in the functional way. Problem solved. So now you're kind of looking at, do we want to use React to avoid new programmers writing in the wrong way? Is that a real issue? And for big companies, it might be. And then maybe you shouldn't use React. But if we were only 2 persons, it's not that hard to have this discussion just once and say, like, yeah, if we continue writing your way, we will have this kind of bug. And we want to avoid that. And I can just have this discussion one time, not every time we get a new person. So that's kind of like when you should avoid a tool and why when you can use a tool. But the most important thing is that you understand what problems is the tool solving. And a thumb of rule should be that when you get comfortable enough, you should be able not to use frameworks, but just use tools.
Okay.
And for me, I can use React as a tool instead of using React as a framework. So I can use React.
Okay. So for doing that, you have to have a good understanding that when you can avoid that framework part of the, right?
Yeah, you need to have good understanding of.
I mean, yeah, good experience for that understanding level. So it takes time.
Yeah, and also if you play music or like done something else than programming that is pretty hard. With music, for example, you need to practice scales and do this warm-up things. It's not playing music, it's just doing movements on the guitar or on the piano or whatever. So you're not really producing music, but you're practicing to become an expert on the instruments. But it's boring. And the most important thing here is motivation. If you try to learn something in programming and you aren't happy about it, then it's wrong. It's better to go to a framework and be happy about it, learning. And it has to do with the brain again, that if you're happy, you will learn much, much faster. If you're just doing dull stuff all the time so you can become an expert faster, you won't become an expert faster because it's too boring. So your brain won't remember it. You will forget stuff. So, and that's what I think, that moving forward, I'm trying to mentor people to always, like, whatever I teach, you go from idea to something live on a server, because that's cool. Like it's really cool seeing your code running on a server, a production server. So it's used, and then we can build like step by step, making more advanced stuff. But like using just these bin tools like I'm doing now, it's not that much fun because you're too much in that space, that like the school bench where you learn stuff, you do elaborations, but what have you actually done? Like what is real value for you? That's something that you should try also to keep in your mind, that whatever way you choose, you need to have some motivation. You need to have some kind of not just long-term goal, but also like short-term goal of do I have something that I want to build? How do I build it as quickly as possible? And now I'm conflicting myself when I say this. So we have different paths, and we need to walk on both of them.
Yeah.
And that kind of sucks. But I want you to understand that it's kind of like playing music, learning a sport, or something that we have training sessions, and we need to have some world where we also compete or perform or whatever we call it. If you only train and train and train and not do something that's real production code, you won't learn how to do real production code. You will only be good at being a junior programmer learning stuff, and you will be great at learning new stuff, but you won't ever be able to put that in a real production environment.
Yeah. And that's the problem with like beginners, because there's so many stuffs in the internet and you overwhelmed with all the stuff, and like you're learning and learning, and you don't have any idea why you're learning, or you don't do anything practical or contribute to the real world.
Yeah,
So yeah, so that's the problem for me as well, because I'm a quick learner. I like to learn. I'm really uh, really like the technological changes and stuff, but the thing is, I don't work with this, so it goes nowhere after some time maybe.
yeah. Okay, so also an important thing when you learn, whatever complex thing you learn, I'll switch to camera again so I can
Yeah,
do gestures. Let's see, like that. Okay,
yeah,
so yeah, there's nothing. So with time, you will have in the beginning, it will all be hard. Like I'm introducing React and Angular, and you should write good code in this manner. It will take a lot of time for you to like digest that, and you will develop slowly. And then when you kind of I kind of get the idea, and
yeah,
then you start practicing on it, you will have a good increase of like the understanding and skills. But
yeah,
you will start to have like a diminishing return. Like you learned everything, but you still need to practice to get better at it, and you start to slow down. And you need to understand when you're slowing down because you're maturing, and that's good. Like it's okay to slow down. You can't learn new things all the time. You need to practice as well. Like as I said, you need to perform and do production stuff as well, and then you will stagnate. But once you matured, like you stagnated for a while, and you practice at getting really expert at something without learning new stuff, you need to learn new stuff again. So then you will like stagnate, and then you need to learn new stuff. And most often that will mean that you need to relearn something. So
yeah,
you have a dip, and you will become like, you will feel like I'm not as good as I was before. And then you will go upwards again, and then stagnate, and then go down, and then go up and stagnate. So you have to keep that in mind going forward in whatever whatever you're learning, that you will have the stagnation phase, and once you go into the next phase, you will feel worse. And you need to prepare for that, and just keep going. And that's why when you get the small bumps, you can also go back to what you were good at and keep doing that for a while. But you can't just try to keep like at the local maxima here. You need to just like bite down and like get that dip to get even better. And we also need some kind of like when you do physical workouts, most people do the wrong thing. Like if you work hard enough, you become strong, you become like physically strong, and you get better. Just grind it through. But what can happen is that we overtrain, and we overtrain at the wrong things. Take Angular, for example. You can like go mad with Angular stuff and just be so damn good with Angular. And then Angular 2 comes, and then you're screwed, because you only learned how to use this one tool and maximize your knowledge inside that small domain.
yeah.
And then you can't do anything else.
Yeah, it happened to me as well, because I was learning Angular with Angular 1. I was understanding very well, and then Angular 2 came up, and when I looked at it, it made really difficult. I mean, I was so upset about that.
But to be fair, if I were to look at Angular 2, which I'm not, I would guess that it would make sense for me. But that's because I try to learn everything about Angular 1
Reasonable.
from the underneath, like this, look at the source code instead of how you produce with Angular 1. And then that's when I saw, like, no, it's not MVC. It's MVC for the one who built it, but it's MVVM for the one that uses Angular. That's the confusing part. And all the different things in Angular 1 that's called like compile and link and all that stuff is named after how it's used inside of the framework, not from the consumer, like we who use Angular. And that perspective is kind of interesting, that if you understand how the code is built, then you can easier transfer the knowledge to another framework and understand also what kind of issues, like what problems do we get from the framework and what problems do we solve with the frameworks. But as long as you don't understand what happens underneath the framework, you can only learn how to use it, but you can't transfer that knowledge to the outside.
Okay, so you learn those by working for some time, or you learn?
Well, I learned through, like, Angular. I learned through.
I mean, the underneath you're saying.
Yeah, the underneath from Mishko himself that did Angular, like podcast. I tried to find every podcast he was on, every video presentation, but they are really old now and outdated, and so is Angular 1. There's no reason why you should try to learn Angular 1 right now, because it's a bit too old. It's interesting from a historical perspective, but that it is too advanced for you right now. But I think that I will. There's a site that I love. Some of the stuff is free. Some of the stuff you have to pay for. It's called egghead.io. And that site puts really short clips and try to keep it like really dense and short.
Okay.
And there's a guy called Dan Abramoff who did Redux. And Redux is the state container, like the one that keeps, you could kind of say model, but not object-oriented, more of the functional side of model. Excuse me.
Related React or?
React. No, not only, but yeah, okay. He did it for React, but there's also Redux for Angular.
Okay.
Because it's more of a small idea. It's more of a helper framework, like tool/framework. And myself, I watched the video, and it's so good. It will teach you to test your code on the front end. He does it with JSPin, I think, so you can just go along. And he introduces how he built Redux. So following him, you will build your own Redux.
Okay.
Without some small, like the really nitty-gritty details, like error handling and stuff, like just the minimal stuff. And that's really good. And that's if you can explain frameworks in that kind of sense, that means that you as a beginner will understand how they built the framework and why it looks like it looks, and then you can get a better understanding of what problem the framework
we're solving with that particular framework, right?
Yeah. So I think that this is a trend, that more people saw how Dan Abramoff did this, and they're also trying to do the same. It's the same. Dan Abramoff is not the first one who did this, but he got the most attention because he did it so well. And the same thing with Angular 1. There was a conference some years ago where a dude built the two-way binding Angular 1 style from the scratch. And that also kind of showed the core of Angular and how easy it was to build yourself. And then you get the understanding, like, how does it really work? So those videos are really important. And yeah, I'll the Dan Abramov Redux stuff, but then you kind of want to learn some React as well, of course. I think you can watch it anyhow, but it
Okay.
would be good to do some React stuff first, then watch the video, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So okay, so now we understand the frameworks and the tools we use. You that kind of enables you to visit GitHub projects and just click on the source code and see what happens and learn from better. I mean, then you learn from really good frameworks that write good code, and
Yeah.
then you can mimic their way of writing code. And you won't learn why they write in different ways, but you will kind of get into the system that this is how code should look.
Okay.
And Angular 1 code, for example, I remember that it was beautiful to watch. So most of the big frameworks have really good quality code. So it kind of teaches you how code should look.
Okay.
And that's a good inspire as well going forward. But there's a whole bunch of stuff uh, like video streams and podcasts and stuff that you can listen to, and I'll try to provide some every time I try to do some picks at the end of my session, and I will point out like some sources
Yeah.
to help out, because it is hard. I mean, the thing that transformed me to a kind of so-so beginner, not a junior, but I kind of felt that I stagnated for a too long time. And to go up to the next level, I kind of just quit my job and tried to find a new job as an Angular developer. And I had to listen through so many podcasts. And those podcasts, you just like going out with the dog, listening to show after show. That actually made me a great programmer. And it's only from listening to shows, being unemployed and walking the dog. So I mean, it's not something I would recommend. Like, quit your job and go outside with your dog. But if I hadn't found the podcasts, I would have been screwed. I would still be on square one. So it's a really hard issue for new programmers, like how they find the best sources to go forward.
Yeah.
But I will try to give some each time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. That would help you maybe, at some point discuss about your like journey in the field, like how your transition came from one to another. So it would help for the beginner as well.
the
Like
hard
me.
part, though, is that everyone is different. I mean, for example, I would not recommend object-oriented programming style in JavaScript, but I would not recommend you not learning it as well. I mean, this is the hard part. Like, there's not one style that's perfect, and
It's just the preference.
It's a preference, and also like there's a deep discussion with this as well. That right now, object-oriented programming has lost to functional programming. I would state that as a fact. And the reason why is really, really deep, and you need to look at the historical facts and so on. But it's kind of like that's a statement of truth for me. But it doesn't mean that you can't go through the object-oriented programming, learning that, and then transition to functional programming and still get better and better. It might even make more sense than going on the functional side and never learn object-oriented. Because what happens if you start on the functional side and get really good, and then you see you get into a team that does object-oriented. Like, you need to start from scratch maybe, because there's too much stuff that doesn't make sense. And how do you make the decision, like, should I try to convince the team to go on my track so we get more quality code? I mean, you can't make that judgment if you don't know both sides well enough.
Yeah.
So I would just, like, whatever tool you go with, just stick with it for a while, learn it good enough, learn how the tool works, like the source code, how it really works. And once you learn, like, I don't think this is the best tool for me. I'm looking for something that also solves this. Then you can transition, try to find a new tool, learn that. And with time, you kind of connect the dots. Like, all these tools seem to solve the same problem. So it doesn't really matter which tool I go with. And right now, I would say that going forward, you need to learn the typical map reduce stuff. That's kind of functional 101 programming stuff. Then you can do it with lodash underscore, which is basically the same tool. You can do it with normal JavaScript with arrays, that you have an array and you do dot map or dot filter, and dot reduce also, I think. But you need to understand map, filter, and reduce well. But you can also use another tool that's called RxJS, which I will promote during all my sessions. And I will go into why. And that's because RxJS, for me, goes into functional reactive programming style. You have different tools trying to go into that direction. And it's Angular 2, which uses RxJS. We have, I don't know if Redux, React with Redux goes, but it goes in that direction, at least. We have Elm, which is kind of a new programming language built on top of JavaScript, but only functional code. You have Cycle.js. Huh? You heard about Elm?
No, I heard about underscore maybe, but I don't know what it does.
Anyhow, we have all these different tools, and they're coming up at the same time, and everything is going in the same direction.
Yes, there's so many tools that it's overwhelming. Yeah.
But the good thing is, though, that if, like I'm saying to you now, if it solves the FRP problem somehow, I mean, if you write functional reactive programming, you're on the right track. If you're not going into functional reactive programming, then you're going to have to switch sooner or later. Now, how do you know if you're going to the FRP side without reading all these documents and learning all the, the theoretical things, and how do you just get started? Well, basically, you just have to go with Elm, because that's a programming language. No, I wouldn't go that way either. I would say, like, once you understand why you need FRP, then you can switch to FRP stuff. But meanwhile, just get good at Lodash, and people will love you for it, because Lodash it's really good. And then I need to include some stuff on Lodash and map reduce.
So right now I was watching what should I say, podcast, or I don't know, maybe webinar, or in Pluralsight. It's like JavaScript from to functional, from beginner to functional, and she will talk about underscore and stuff in later periods. Yeah, and I'm finding it interesting, because the concepts I learned about JavaScript, I'm just rechecking with this one, that if I'm right or wrong. So yeah.
Well, the bad thing, though, is that when you learn the Lodash tools, then you come into the issue like, what I use it for. So then again, you will have the issue that the beginner question, the question you had from the beginning, like, you want to learn how to program, period. Like, how to become a developer. And you don't become a developer by writing a function and using Lodash. You need to do a whole entire application, and you need some different patterns. And that's why I'm mentioning FRP, that using Lodash or RxJS or anything else that goes in the normal JavaScript, that goes into the FRP direction, you will go into the right direction, but you need to learn the entire FRP flow. And that's really hard stuff, like to learn how to build an entire application in a good way. I will try to cover it. That's the thing. I will try to cover it step by step. by not.
Okay.
So basically, just keep on watching and also provide feedback, because you are kind of the model for who I'm trying to teach. I mean,
Okay.
you have the exact correct. I mean, you have questions. Most beginners don't have those questions that you have right now. In the beginning, you don't know what questions you need to ask.
Yeah,
You
sure.
really have the right mindset and the right questions, and that is kind of questions I will try to provide. I will only show one way of doing it. I will try to point out so you don't need to copy my style of programming. You should always feel free to go in another direction.
Yeah.
But there is some kind of general direction. So I'm just one path, but
Yeah.
we're all kind of swaying right now into this FRP stuff. But I would also say, like, when you learn something as a community, it's not like a labyrinth where we go like object-oriented way, and then it feels like, boom, we can't get any further, so we have to go back and learn functional program this way. We're, as a community, we're gonna have a big map, and right now, like, if we have the upper level as some kind of success parameter, like object-oriented is like at the 70s or something. I don't know when it got popular. We had functional and object-oriented, and then object-oriented programming just went like boom. It's perfect. It's great for everything. And then it felt like we kind of stagnated, and the functional went up here. But it still means that object-oriented provided some kind of value. So now we switch to functional, and we're, as a community, we're able to get further with functional. But we're still here. It doesn't mean that this, like, it was a one-way street leading nowhere. It still means that we can, from object-oriented, find other paradigms that are kind of similar and borrows from functional, and then it might go further still.
Yeah.
But as a community right now, I think that we need to transition from object-oriented to some functional paradigms.
Okay.
But maybe it's something here in between, not the pure functional side. So
Okay.
maybe we'll go into the middle somehow and find a compromise and go forward from there.
Okay. So would you discuss about the tools you'll be using? I mean, the why you are using that, or would it be any comparison with other things, or you can just stay aside from the comparison and do some reasoning of the tools you're using,
Yeah,
so that we can understand that why we are using that and what are the pros and cons of that.
I think that being, I can cover that now, because yeah, you should question if someone says that functional programming is better than object-oriented programming, period, like I am, then you shouldn't really listen to me just based on that. It's really important. You don't understand why I have my view. Just don't care about it. It's just one person's like opinion. But the reason I have the opinion is, like, I love object-oriented programming. I studied design patterns, and there's a really famous book that you don't need to check out, but Gang of Four Design Patterns, they call it, like the 4 persons doing some stuff. And in it, this was for object-oriented programming. And they talked about that you should always try to compose objects, whatever composition means, instead of inheriting. So inheritance, do you know inheritance?
Yes.
So if we have, yeah, I need to change to the screen here. Well, there we go. That's so. If we have, I'll just write pseudocode because JavaScript isn't that clean, and I don't know the ECMAScript 6 way of doing it. But we have a class, vehicle, and it has an integer, or variable wheels equals just need one wheel for a vehicle, or let's say two. That's the default. And then we have another class here called car.
Inherits vehicle or something.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's extends in JavaScript, but the inherits, yeah, it's the same thing. And here we can just put like wheels equals 4, and we override it. So we have var vehicle equals new vehicle, and vehicle wheels. If we console.log, so that would print 2. I'm not saying that this is JavaScript code, but you get the idea.
Yeah, you have to put the name of vehicle after extends, right? I mean, car extends vehicle.
Huh? Here we have car extends, or where
car extends vehicle, right?
Yeah. Okay, so
yeah.
Single V. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And so if we have car here, okay, so you understand this code. It's not true JavaScript code, but still.
You understand the object-oriented concept.
Yeah, I think we should have like this dots.
Depends on the programming language.
Anyhow, instead of extending, we could always have some kind of composition. So if we have here, we keep the class vehicle, but we want to avoid extends for some reason that I will cover later. So then I can do like or class, and we can have a try. It's a tricycle. And instead of extending, you just make it like so. And this dot vehicle equals new vehicle. This dot vehicle dot wheels equals 3. Okay. And then we do var trike equals new trike. And we can console.log. And now we need to do a bit deeper here with trike.vehicle.
Vehicle dot
wheel.
Yeah.
And we will get 3. Okay, so this looks like you got to put namespace here, like, and it doesn't even make sense, like trike and then dot vehicle, and so we have some stuff here that doesn't make sense, but like on the car dot wheels make more sense. Structural, like we expect wheels to be on the car. And we can always go around it in different ways here. And like this dot wheels equals this dot vehicle dot wheels. And then we can just use that namespace instead. So, and that's the point that they were trying to make in that book, is that whatever you can do with inheritance, you can do with composition. And the trike here is a composition.
Okay.
And that's a thing that if you use normal composition, you're going, I won't say that you're going to the functional side, but you're removing
skipping the inheritance part.
Huh?
You're skipping the inheritance part here.
In the composition part, I'm skipping inheritance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, if we go like with composition, we're skipping we're skipping the inheritance part, and with that, we need to learn less. We don't need to understand what inheritance means, what problems it's trying to solve, and what problems that arises. Because we can do the same with composition and just learn composition really well. And then and composition is a part of object-oriented programming.
Yeah.
So you will kind of need to learn both the inheritance part and the composition part. But if you become really good at object-oriented programming, you will skip the extents part mostly anyhow. But for some special cases, you will use extents in JavaScript.
Yeah.
But not as an app developer, but as a tools developer. And you will never expose that to the user of the tools normally, which Angular 2 does. That's bad. The reason why most people expose the extents part is because most of the programmer on the object-oriented side historically are used to using extents instead of inheritance. But what happens then is that when you get a bug and you do car.wheels and you don't get a 4, you get a 1. Now, where can the bug be? It can be in here, or it can be in here. So even though you just wrote the code for the car and get a bug inside the car, the bug can originate from inside here, and you will never know. So the deeper your extension tree goes, the more code you have to go through, and you have no idea who's actually doing what. But in the composition, if we go back here to trike vehicle.wheel, and we have a bug here. Since it comes from the vehicle, we know that the bug must be in.
Yeah, we know the path at least. Yeah, this path it came. That means the bug can be there.
Yeah, so we're isolating the code, and that's the thing with composition. We get more isolation, which is an object-oriented thing. So the reason why I'm switching toward more functional code is because they're solving object-oriented programming. So really, I'm not really switching to functional from object-oriented programming. It just means that I become good enough at object-oriented programming to avoid the problems that we did by using inheritance. And there's historical things that, like using this. We don't need to use this as a keyword in JavaScript. You should never use this. It's only for performance. I mean, micro performances on actions you do like 1,000 times during a second or stuff like that. Then you really need to micro optimize and understand the compilers and all that stuff. If you don't do that, there's no reason to use the class system with this keyword. And you will also hear people talking about the prototype inside of JavaScript, and we have prototype-based inheritance. If you understand the problem correctly, it's the same thing. You don't need to use prototype in JavaScript. You only use composition. And this is really hard to, because if you just start with composition and do everything right, you won't learn all the problems you're avoiding and solving with composition. So I would actually recommend follow the normal guide, use the extent thing, but just remember what I said, that everything you can do with inheritance, you can do with composition and with less bugs. Okay. And when you get an inheritance bug in your code, think about it and then switch over to composition.
Okay, I'll try right away. Maybe today. Yeah, there's one issue of like beginners, so that you have a problem and you go to Stack Overflow, because people recommend that to go there and ask a question. And I was searching about like there's a two type of function declaration stuff in JavaScript. Like you write var and then a name and equals to an anonymous function, right? There's this way, and there's the old like way in the C we that's function and then the function name and just the body. Like there's this way I learned while learning JavaScript, and the second way you are writing it I learned in C. So I don't know which way to use, or is there any different on that kind of stuff. And I went to Stack Overflow with that, and there was so much division between those. And beginner like me gets even more confused because they were talking like runtime and those timing, and the other guy said that that information was wrong, and there was some testing about like console printing the name of the function, and maybe it also depends on the browser you're testing on, because different browser gives different results. So how to like I mean, how to decide or how to get true answer out of Google? I mean, this searching kind of stuff. Is there any way you follow that is reliable, you think, or something?
Okay, so also, I mean, perfect question, because the first, so you're really good at asking questions. I would expect you to just want to answer, but what you're really asking here is twofold. Like the question to what's right and wrong with how you declare your function and why, but also the meta question, like for the next time I have a similar question, how do I find an answer to it? So let's start with the small question and go to the more abstract question later.
Yeah.
And first thing, this is from you don't know JavaScript. So this is just me paraphrasing Kyle Simpson, which is one of the world's better JavaScript developers. I'm not there yet, but this is how I would explain it. Here you have a left-hand value on the left side of the equal sign. This is a variable that you assign something.
Yeah.
We can assign a 5 or whatever, and here we assign something that is a right-hand value. A left-hand value and right-hand value, that's it's compiler language for all languages.
Yeah.
And those are different. And here, we don't have a name for the function, but that's not the biggest difference. The biggest difference is that this is a right-hand value, and this here, named right, is a left hand. But this is the biggest difference. This is a left hand and kind of a right hand, but it's a left hand value. That's the most correct way of seeing this. So when the compiler goes through the code, it will go like first looking only on the left hand values. And we'll see this here, my func. And it won't do anything with the right hand side. We won't assign stuff yet. We will only look for different variables, setting the variables up. So going through the code on the first run, it just goes here. Okay, cool. So now we have my func on our what's called scope. And here we'll find this function here and have that on our scope. So now those are available. And then it runs again and executes the code. And while you're executing, you have an assignment here, and it puts the anonymous function to my func. Here, you don't do anything because we already did. It's no assignment, no nothing. We only declare the code. But what's interesting here is if we do like this, and we do my func, my other function.
Yeah, the first one would have an error, and the second one would not find.
Exactly. And the reason is that the first run, this is not a left-hand value because we're not assigning anything. Same thing here. This is not a left-hand value. We're not assigning anything. And here, we have a left-hand value, and then we go here, we have left-hand value. So when we go up here, I'll just add one more here. Not declared func, which doesn't exist at all.
Yeah.
So we found my func and my other function as two left-hand values. And now when we execute the code, this is not declared. So I think it will be like undefined, function undefined or something.
Yeah.
When we go here, my func is actually defined, but doesn't have a value. I'm unsure. I think it would give us null. But it's basically, my func is null, I think, because we defined it, but we haven't assigned it yet. So it's not a function yet.
Yeah.
My other function, we've declared it as a function already, as a left-hand value, as a function. So it's already accessible. This will work.
Yes.
And that's what the JavaScript, if you don't know JavaScript, goes through, how the compiler works. And you will hear people saying that JavaScript hoists what that means. And
I have confusion about that hoisting.
Hoisting doesn't exist. Only the compiler going through the code in a first sweep and a second sweep. The first sweep to find the variables, the second sweep to execute the code.
Yeah. For example, compiler has different like way of storing the variable and the function.
Repeat the question.
Does compiler have different ways to store like a normal variable and function?
I can't really. I would say no. A function is just like a number or a string or whatever. In that, say that you have a variable, and I mean, my other function here, we could do my other function equals 5, or dot something equals 5. So it's a normal kind of normal object, but the interesting thing here is this the syntax that we write. So if we want to use to make this kind of equal to this one here, what you could do is do my
with an M, yeah, with a kind of mixed approach.
Yeah, but it's still not equal though, because
because when it is like my func.name, it would put the name of this one you wrote after the function, because if the variable have a different name, it doesn't have the function name as that one. Yeah, it would say the function name is my internal name.
It will do that. So this is, you can do some hacks, and my internal name, I'm saying that because that name is accessed from here.
Yeah.
So here I can use my internal name, but if I use my internal name here, I won't find it.
Yeah.
So then I need to use myfunc, which is the kind of external name. But calling myfunc.name or stuff like that, yeah, that might give the internal name as well.
Internal name, yes.
So all these stuff that we're talking about, understand the problem and the underlying how it works, and that's I'll read the books from Kyle Simpson or watch the. There must be something on YouTube. I hope there's something for free on YouTube, but just understand why. And then you should land on using this. And good to know, the other recommendation, Doug Crockford, JavaScript, The Good Parts, he talked about using this style because it looks like a normal variable. Like if you have var my value equals 5, and you have my func equals function, and you have code like this. For a new programmer, this makes more sense. It looks like my val and my func looks, the code looks the same.
Yeah.
While when you write it as function my func like that instead, it's kind of like, okay, what does this mean compared to the my val equals 5? It's harder to understand here what's happening. But that doesn't mean that this is a better solution. It means that this is easier to understand without really getting the deep knowledge. Well, this means that you need to have deeper knowledge, and then it works better. So, so the answer is kind of like, yeah, this is a better solution for beginners and seniors, but it also forces you to kind of recognize how the language works. So if you only understand this part here, you're not a good JavaScript developer. But if you understand this, then you're a better JavaScript developer. Because understanding line 7 here implies that you also understand line 3.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing, knowledge. Now,
I found that this one, this one you prefer maybe, and this one, if I have to like search for a function name, using a function name for any debugging of stuff, then the second one is better because it has a direct function name.
Yeah, but also you will have callbacks, inline callbacks. You will have like, let's use promises. So we have a promise dot resolve 5 dot dem. Okay, so this takes a callback, and if you don't know promises, it's okay. It's just that dem takes a success function here.
Okay.
And here you get some kind of value, which will be 5. And
if the resolve return, when the resolve return, then it runs that function, right?
So resolve here, I did it will instantaneously return with the value 5 because I did dot resolve. So there's different ways of doing this that I won't cover here. But if you have some kind of, if you have a dot resolve, I don't know if it's inside the JavaScript, normal JavaScript library. You might have to do it another way. But if you have a library, like a promise library, usually we have dot resolve as well. And if you do this,
and then the function under then runs.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. But if you get a bug here, so cons low like that.
Yeah.
Now we have a bug. And inside your code, it will just say anonymous function, because this here is an anonymous function.
Yeah.
But if we write on resolve, we will get a better call stack, and it will be easier to find.
The error in the on resolves. Yeah, sure.
So this is my tip. Always, when you use right hand or left hand, okay, if you use left hand functions, you always need a name. But functions should always have a name. And that is because we need to solve the problem with deep call stacks not having names, and it becomes harder to find the code. Now, that will...
We can use the, can we use the mixed approach? Like we have the var, the variable, and we have function and the name of the function, like that.
What approach?
I mean, there is a right hand, left hand, but after function we have the function name.
Yeah.
Like you wrote. Can we do that? like
Use, instead of unresolved here as a right-hand value, use a left-hand value.
I mean, we could do another line, written var x equals to function on resolve, and then we just invoke it here, like just the x.
So I have var on resolve. Actually, I just need to check here if I can do this in the directly here in the browser. Promise. Okay, we have that. Resolve. Promise resolve. Oh. Promise resolve 5 dot then. I'll make a quick hand console. You see? Get a 5. So we can use this code here to do this. Actually, I'll try to use the code here. I just want to see here. bin.log. Test. Yeah, okay, we can use it here. So this is better. Okay. So we do a var right hand. I'll write better code on them. I would write on them myself. So function val and console.log val. Okay.
Yeah.
So unless you use semicolons for the sake of it. Here you should have a semicolon. That's also a difference. Okay, and now we use promise dot resolve 42 dot down on down. Say okay, that should work. No, oh, sorry, console. Okay, bin. There we go. Okay, so now we print 42, and let's see what happens. I don't know how it prints the errors. I think I need to go here.
Yeah.
And we see undefined. Let's clear this. Just LG is not a function. Okay, so now it's kind of a convoluted. We don't get a good call stack here.
Yeah. I was thinking about like what about var on then equals to function then a function name.
Oh, here you want the function
like
name
the
here?
mix. Yeah, the mix.
Internal.
So maybe in the error message we will have the name of that one, that internal name.
This should let's see. I was hoping to be able to set a breakpoint. Should you really use another environment than the? This is the problem with using bin, like JS bin and Webpack bin, that you get too much around.
Yeah.
But basically here, when we get the error, I think we will see. But as you said as you read on Stack Overflow, I think that Chrome, Google Chrome, actually handles the left-hand values. Even if we do this, it might print out on them. But you can't depend on it because you have different browsers. You have also have the node environment on the back end.
Yeah.
So it might help you, but it's easier just to think about it that you should always name the function if it's a right-hand value. So
yeah,
this is what I would say that you should do. And then maybe in like 10 years, I would change my mind. But yeah. Then again, I wouldn't put too much time on it. No. Because we can still just use it as a left-hand value. and removed semicolon and problem solved. And we wouldn't have this debate. And that's the thing, like, I like philosophy, and I believe that with philosophy that you try to find rules explaining as much as possible with as few rules as possible is something good. Like that is a kind of scientific way of doing things. And for me, this left-hand style, it breaks the rule that you define functions in a different way. So then you have two ways. You have all the other variables that you declare with var x equals 5 style. So you have two rules. But when it's a function declared like this, you need to understand so many things that we need more than two rules. So we need, like, okay, we need to have a name here as well. But we could have it like that, and a browser can still handle it sometimes. And but you still need to call the function x from here and not from here. You need a rule for that as well. And so then this is better because we need less rules.
Yes.
And that's the golden rule to me, that less rules is better. As long as it explains how you should code.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. So the other part of the question, that how you find answers like Stack Overflow and you find the debate on the issue. I would say that Stack Overflow and blog posts are two of the more unreliable sources because you get a problem of opinion, and Stack Overflow should provide a specific answer to a specific question. When you get into the philosophy of programming, some Stack Overflow questions with good, really good answers, Stack Overflow can be good, and blog posts can be good. But normally, both of them have some kind of way of providing good enough answers, especially blog posts. You never see, like, try and learn something new, and everybody that has a bit of experience knows that you should learn how to unit test your code as soon as possible. But you will never find a blog post trying to learn you, teach you Angular from beginning with unit tests. And you will never find a Stack Overflow post doing the same, like, okay, here's your solution, and by the way, here's the unit test provided for that code, because it bloats, it becomes too big.
Yeah, maybe it becomes boring for the beginners, so they skip that part so that their like post or question answer becomes more famous or something.
But here's the thing, though, that you kind of need to learn by doing, and the beginners should learn by looking at how the seniors do things. And when seniors teach by not doing what they do in real life, you learn. You don't get a good knowledge circle where the seniors provide their knowledge of how to do really good code. And that's a problem for me myself. I'm not that used to doing unit tests because this took a long time for me to realize that everybody writes unit tests. They just don't provide information in the blog posts. So then you need to go really, really deep, and then you get all this advanced stuff like non-beginner stuff of how you unit test. And then I think really that the Dan Abramoff Egghead video shows that we can provide a unit test really early and make it available so that we can provide detailed information to beginners in a really easy way.
Okay.
Doing code and examples easier because we use unit tests. You can really make stuff more, like make sense of stuff by using unit tests more. But okay, so finding answers to the questions, when you have this kind of question that it's hard to Google, it's hard to get an overview on Stack Overflow. Right here is the problem that I'm trying to solve by bringing you here online and having this discussion.
Okay.
It's a community issue that we haven't solved. And it's a problem of we don't have a democracy in open source yet. We have a broadcasting system where we have the superstars. The superstars write a blog post. People like me follow them on Twitter, read it, and then we write our own blog posts a bit differently, but kind of the same information. And then you get hold of my answer on my blog post or my answer on Stack Overflow. And then you have like, okay, you can answer how, but not why.
Yeah.
But I still get a check and my Stack Overflow points. And what should you do? Like Twitter at me? Should I explain the last 10%? Like really deep knowledge through Twitter on 140 characters? That's how I try it sometimes. Like, what do you mean by X, Y, and Z on Twitter? Of course they can't answer, because it's a bad medium. So really what we need is face-to-face contact or chat or whatever, where we can ask anything. And this kind of way of asking questions, like it's called Ask Me Anything, AMA. And I know this really cool dude named Kenzie Dodds, and I'll provide a link to that later. And he has a AMA, and he's also kind of a rising star. He's kind of famous, but he's also keeping really good courses for beginners to participate in the open source community. He has good presentations and egghead courses of how to participate as a beginner. But it's still kind of broadcasts mostly. But on GitHub, he also has an Ask Me Anything kind of solution. And that's the only way, finding some kind of mentor where you can ask these kind of questions. You won't get anywhere elsewhere. You have to settle with the broadcasted information. And all those questions you have that aren't covered, you will just need to accept that you won't get them answered if you don't get hold of a senior programmer that can go into details. So that's the answer. You won't find the information that you're looking for, and you need to accept that and try to move forward anyhow. And then just find better broadcast channels through Twitter and videos, so you hopefully get better Stack Overflow answers and better videos. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for the honest answer.
But it is an issue, and we're the community is talking about it more. How we should make the open source community more open to beginners. But we need to have a two-way communication, and you won't find that easily. But it's on its way. So, and if you find a solution to this problem, please tell me, because we have so many beginners who are frustrated, and me as well, because I'm good at many things, but I'm a beginner in most things, as we all are. So we all have these kind of problems. Yeah. Okay. Well, do you think that's enough questions for this time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any, like, if we stop that, do you have any last, like, important question to round up with?
Okay. Yeah, another question, maybe you hear it a lot of times, that how to get into the industry. I mean, like you're learning techniques, and you have to show off the techniques to the industry or something, and maybe you don't have any idea of any project or something, but you want to work for practicing purpose or whatever, or for showboating to the industry. So how do you start? I mean, or how tough it's to get into the industry when you are like beginner, or you just learn the stuffs but you don't have the experience. How to get into the experience part?
Yeah. Okay. So just to add, I had another question on through Gitter.
Wow, great.
About let's see, it's the free code camp. They have like a sub Gitter called Help JavaScript, and I try to help out there. And there's Joe's question was like, how do I get a job? Because that's what you want to learn through real projects and get real experience, so you can get a real job. If you can get a real job without real experience, then you will get real experience on that real job. So then it's
Yeah,
not.
that's the thing, that if the chicken comes first or the egg, the
Yeah.
experience comes first or the yeah.
But the important thing here is though that your question is different. You're not asking how do I get a real job. You're asking how
No.
to get real experience. And
Yeah.
that's the most important thing that, to realize. You don't need a real job to do real job.
Yeah.
I mean, real experience comes from doing real stuff. If you provide real value for the real world, like
Yeah.
you don't just do elaboration.
You don't have to go to any company to do the job. You can do home, but how to like, yeah.
Okay, so that's a good thing. So I can focus on that here. And the most important thing is that Kenzie Dodds, I mentioned him for a reason, and he's kind of putting a drive on Twitter for first-time pull requests only. That means on GitHub, they're trying to set up a system and save really easy tasks for beginners like you to go in, and you will find like first-timers only, and they will try to provide you exact steps for what you need to code or do, something really trivial. And then you just say like, oh, I want to do this, and then you make a pull request, and I'll cover that stuff, like how you do Git and GitHub later. But you do a pull request, and you send in the pull request to them, they accept it, and boom, you committed some code to a real project. And that will be visible on your GitHub profile, which should be your kind of resume. I don't know what is a CV. So when you're looking for a job, you should always keep, like, LinkedIn is great when you're looking for a job. So you should have a CV on LinkedIn. But when I'm, as a technical leader, look at your profile, I will skim through the CV, kind of find out what kind of person are you. Then I will look at GitHub to find out how good of a programmer are you. The personality part is really, I mean, it's more important how you learn stuff than what you know. But GitHub kind of tells me how far you gotten, and if you're like, oh, can I hire you so you can start producing code, or do I need to learn you from scratch? And that might take a couple of years. So even though you're a good investment, I can't invest 2 years on you until you can produce stuff. So the first-time committer, I'll try to find and first time. I'll actually try to find something for you.
Is it a new thing?
It's kind of new, yeah. Month, 2, that I've seen it really circulating on Twitter. And as you notice, I've commented on Twitter many times now. So that should be something like, how do you become a good programmer? Like, if everyone is on Twitter, just try to join folks on Twitter, like 3 or 4 guys, and then through them you will find more and find more. It doesn't mean that you can communicate to them. I've tried. Mostly it's like you write a comment and you get a like or something. It's not like you will still be anonymous, but at least you get direct broadcasting from the source and not through me. And that's important. You can't just listen to me as a person. You need to listen to many experts. I'm not saying that I'm an expert. Okay. But then you learn how to participate at least. And in the beginning, you will participate through documentation. But I feel like participating through documentation will teach you how to do pull requests. But then what? You want to learn how to read code and commit real code.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? And that's another unanswered question that I don't feel like, again, how do you become an active participator of writing code in a good project?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to do that with my, and I'll provide a link to that as well, RxJS server. So on GitHub, I have a project called RxJS server, and I'm trying to make a kind of base project, and I've included like most of the tools, like test runners. You can see like all tests passed on this project. I tried to start. I started a Gitter channel, so a chat channel. Nobody uses it, but you can find a link and you can join the chat. So it's like basic setup with how you should structure your project without being this enormous project.
Okay.
And once it matures enough, I'm starting to get there, but I'm not really done yet. I will start to try inviting people to write their own components, so you can learn the component style of writing things with, you know, six statements maximum, 2 arguments maximum, all that that stuff.
Okay.
And doing the pull request, and I can help you through the chat and all that stuff. So I'm trying to make a project that's available for beginners, so you can write real code and not just documentation. I'm starting to get there. I'm not done yet, but there will be some issues though with it being based on like RxJS, and RxJS is kind of hard to learn. So I'm also starting to include a front end, so people like you that want to focus on the front end can kind of look at that project and not go to the back end side. But that's it takes time. I mean, this is stuff I do on my free spare time. So I need to do the full-time work, and then I need to do this as well and put down effort to make it available for beginners. And then I need to take time and mentor the beginners. So basically, I will keep it down to a minimum. Like once we form a team of beginners, because that's what I'm trying to do. I want to mentor people so you have each other. So you have at least a minimum of 3 people. And then me maybe as some kind of facilitator, not leader, but I should just like keep you going so you can move forward.
Yeah.
And then I'm set. So that's my idea. I will try to provide something like this for 3 to 6 persons, and just mentor those and get those people good enough to find a job. And if you find other ways, that would be great. But it's really hard to find a simple enough project that's serious enough. And yeah, it's really, really hard. But start with the documentation phase, because if you can't help out with the documentations and the first time only commits, you won't be able to be part of what I'm trying to provide as well.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest part. But in the long run, you should commit code to other people's projects on GitHub. That's the sum of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe in the future, after forming a group, we can like have a meetup or something. And yeah.
Yeah, I saw a guy on the Stockholm channel that talked about meeting up, and I think that would be a great idea.
Yeah.
And also, this is I mean, this is also a thing with the Google Hangout. And I put down 11 o'clock to do my kind of solo thing, and then I invite you, and we did this for yeah, we're up to what, 2.5 hours or something, and because this is the real reason. I don't want to do just another video cast showing you how I program. I want to really make sure that people learn, and filming it is just so people can rewatch it and read it and make it more accessible. I'm not trying to do this as a broadcasting, another broadcasting system. I'm trying to make it two-way. You ask real questions. We look at real code. We
Yeah.
try to do real stuff.
Yeah.
And then we should meet each other up if we can. If someone lives in another country, it might be hard. But then we have Hangouts as well, so we can participate here. But
I'll try to document. I'll try to document the questions I asked and your answer, so that it can help for others in the future.
can you kind of? I didn't hear that.
I'll try to document all the stuff we talked about. I mean, the questions I had, the answer I got, kind of way of me, and so that, and make it available for others so that they can find the answers.
Yeah, and
The similar.
Yeah, that's great. I'll provide the show notes, and please provide in the Hangouts event. It would be great if you can kind of give some, like, this were my because it's your perspective that's the reality. Like, if I try to somehow explain something, it's how you experience my answer. How you it's your view that's the most important, because you're the beginner.
Yeah. That's why I want to provide for other beginners, so that they can have like a kind of fact, like question or something like that. Yeah.
Cool, really great. And moving forward, I hope that we can have code sessions as well when we get at least a couple of beginners more, and we can just like sit down and hack on Hangouts and just provide help for each other. So we'll do some of that as well.
Yeah.
But I think this is a great start, and I mean, it was Sahil. Sorry. Is that the right pronunciation? Sahil?
Yeah. It's absolutely right. There's no way you can like mispronounce it.
Yeah, same thing like Marcus. That's good. Anyhow, I'm looking forward to having you join again and answer more questions. And we'll see what it leads to. I mean, I will round it here because this was a really, really long session, but I think we needed it. For those watching in hindsight, I should have said it from the beginning that, I mean, this live session is so long and so specialized on your questions that the value of watching afterwards for other people isn't that great. So you summarizing the questions and answers, that will be the biggest value. So the reason for having this as a recording is just to, if someone like moving forward, I think that the openness and the having stuff available.
Discussed elaborately,
It's just a good default. I mean, there's no reason not to have it recorded and available for everyone. More of a like philosophical reason than getting like fame or something for it. So it's mostly for you and others like you to benefit from it.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I'll round up and kind of kick you out and do something before that, because this is, I don't know how many. Actually, I don't need that. You're on the team now for this show, so I actually can do the picks right now. And the picks phase is something that I borrowed from usual like dev chat TV podcasts. They usually end the show with some tips. It can be anything from like your favorite candy to some kind of development stuff for a book or whatever. So if you have any picks, think about it. I have some picks that I think are important here. And let's see here. So my picks are like, we all already mentioned this guy, and it's Ken C. Dodds. And I want to pick him because he really focuses on beginners and making more making the community more accessible for beginners by tweeting out and doing lectures and all that kind of stuff. Everybody really making stuff available through Twitter and other channels, like Can't See Dogs. That's a real inspiration for me. So that's really good. And another thing is dogs. I want to pick dogs because I have a dog, a boxer, and developing you sit down a lot. I should really stand up more, but it's when the dog Moa, when Moa wants to go outside, I need to take her outside. I need to take a break, and those breaks not only make like my circulation and the body healthier, but it also provides something for my brain. And that's like if I get stuck on a problem, I need to go away from the computer. And if I go outside for a walk, my brain kind of you kind of step away from the entire problem and you zoom out, and the brain starts working kind of like in the background, and that enables you to get a broader perspective and find increase your area where you can find a solution to your problem. So that's something that really exists, like scientifically exists. That if it's something like latent working. I don't know what it's called in English and barely in Swedish, but step away from the computer, do something else, and then the brain relaxes a bit and can find a solution where you didn't expect it. Okay. Also, I was going to work with React and some building tools, Babel and Webpack. And I want to pick Webpack because I'm going to really hate Webpack, and like you will see my frustration with Webpack, and you'll go like, if you hate Webpack that much, why are you even using it? And the truth is, it's a good tool. The bad thing is the documentation is sucky, and if you miss one word somewhere, you just don't get the results you expect. So I hate Webpack, but I love that I get to hate it. And I love that Webpack sticks with me, even though I act like a dick too with Webpack. So thank you, Webpack, for being there for me, even though I hate you. And also, if you've been on, this is my last pick, and I will try to provide some pick that is kind of political and sensitive in some way, because I feel like, especially in Sweden right now with immigration and stuff, we're dividing. I mean, and many countries are dividing, and I think that we need to get better at discussing extreme stuff and being inclusive, like with everything. So some political left person should be able to discuss with a political right, because most often they agree with 99%, but they're like screaming at each other for that last 1%. And I'm, as myself, politically, I think I am an anarchist. So I describe myself as a probable anarchist. And as such, I try to discover stuff from an anarchistic view of democracy. And free speech, for me, I kind of feel like with Donald Trump and stuff, kind of different stuff that happened that Sahil, you don't know about it, but there's some debate about inviting like bigots to present at different conventions. So do you want to have racists talking at a convention? And I mean, we have freedom of speech, right? So who do we invite? Who do we block? Is it correct for the organizers to block certain peoples because of their views if they just talk about other stuff? Where do you draw the line? And that line drawing, I don't feel that that debate is going in the right direction, because for me, freedom of speech is not the right to express everything to everyone, because that's broadcasting. And the broadcasting is not the same as us talking here and now. You can say to me directly, like, Marcus, you're a fool. Like, your idea sucks. And then we can debate it. But if someone else watches this after we're not live, they can't really debate with us. So communicating on screen live now, we have a debate. And that's something where we can enforce free speech, that even though I have bad views, it should be okay to debate those. But when you go up and you present something to an audience and the audience can't participate, that's not free speech.
No.
So as soon as you have the broadcasting unidirectional information flow, you need to take care, but you can't say that you can invite, that you need, in the name of democracy, invite a racist to speak on your conference because you want to be like a democratic platform. You can't, because it's not democratic in the sense of it. It's more of a dictatorship, because you invite different dictators to dictate the agenda, and you as a, and I don't mean like evil dictators. You can have good dictators as well.
Yeah.
But as soon as you have people just listening passively, and you bring someone up, you need to take the responsibility, because it will always be based on dictatorship.
Yeah.
And that's an issue. So don't invite the bigots. That's my view. But that doesn't mean that I don't believe that you should avoid discussing with.
No. One is discussion and one is broadcasting. So those are different.
Yeah, and that's my picks for this time. So, Sahil, do you have any recommendations, picks, like stuff that excites you right now that you want to share?
I don't have any, because I didn't think about that.
No, I know. Now you know.
Yeah, and now I know. Next time, maybe.
Yeah. Well, it was great having you. And I'll try to have another session, like solo session, later today. So I'll also go through the React and Webpack stuff as well. But this is what I really want to do. So thank you for making my dream come true.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate that. And I'd love to see other people coming here as well for their questions and opinions stuff.
Yeah, I'll try to invite more people and force them on here.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Have a nice day, Sil, and let's keep in touch.
Yeah. Trevlig helg. Blogpost. Bye.
Bye.